first of 2 breakfast symposiums. I think this space, when I saw it, it just said this is the right place, because I'm hoping a few more people will join us over the next hour, and if they stand at the back, as you gentlemen have, and grab a coffee, then that's what this is all about. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand over to Jim, who's going to set the scene for this session with Ranj and Carsten. Without further ado.
Okay, thank you, Trace. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, as Tracy has said, it's the speed dating aspect of Distripress has been extended into a more formal marriage and relationship between these two. And I think Readly and Asendia also, apart from just putting 2 companies together, it's also a print operator, a traditional print operator who's changing and diversifying in Asendia with a digital operator. So I think it captures very much the whole theme of what the Distripress Circulation Monitor is about. It's about diversification, about partnerships and cooperation. So to kick off, I think we've got a couple of slides where, and that isn't Ranj actually on that, just in case you are. Oh, good. As you can see, this relationship is going very badly wrong already. Yeah. But Ranj, did you want to? So we've got a couple of slides just for you to a bit of background as to how the operation works and what Readly is.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Jim. We like to call ourselves the ultimate magazine subscription. So we're a magazine subscription reading app. And within the app, you can read as much as you like for either €9.99 or £7.99. So it really is, as Jim said, and we're sticking to the Swedish theme, a smorgasbord of magazines for the consumer, for the modern day consumer. I've put cancel anytime, no fixed term contract is because I originally come from a print background. And I was brainwashed when I was working in the print industry for getting subscribers on as under a direct debit or a standing order. For us here, it's all about flex, and it's all about making sure that customers can come in, dip in and out as and when they want to. Readly is available worldwide, and it's compatible with all devices. You can see the badges at the bottom. Next slide, please, Jim. So in terms of numbers, just to share a few of those with you, I mean, we're working with some of the biggest brands in the world, so Hearst, Condé, Axel Springer, to name but a few, and obviously Asendia as a supplier. So at the moment we have over 750 plus publishers on the platform, and over 4,500 magazines. So these are the actual magazines themselves, over 100,000 issues, and I say over 100,000 because I think we've kind of lost count now. As I say, 50 territories worldwide, that's where we're available. And our App Store rating, we're very proud of this. It's normally it's 5 in the UK, but we average it out at 4.8. So that's really in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. And in terms of growing and going into different countries, that's a clear drive from Readly.
Absolutely, yeah. It was, we're a startup scale up. So our objectives constantly are chopping and changing. So last year, the plan at the beginning of last year was to sort of launch into 2 territories, and then it rapidly changed into 8 territories by the end of the year, and then we went back to 4. So next year's plans are being pulled together this year.
Right, okay.
So, yeah.
And Switzerland, that's a natural extension. You were in Germany before.
Absolutely, yeah. So Switzerland for us was what we classify as low-hanging fruit, because obviously we've got German speakers within the organisation. We have an office in Berlin as well. German content on the platform, so we thought, the natural route to go, or the natural route to market, was to go to Switzerland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And somebody said, why isn't Readly in Switzerland? And then you popped up, Carsten.
Well, we found Carsten. I found him. Or Johannes found him.
No, it was him.
Johannes found him, yeah.
Do you want to fill us in then? Thanks, Ranj. Just fill us in, Carsten, a bit about Asendia, because apart from anything else, you're a massive organisation which has gone and looks as though you're still going through a lot of change. So we've got a slide there of what Asendia does.
So this is what our subsidiary is doing. But Asendia itself is a joint venture between Swiss Post and La Poste, the French La Poste. It was founded in 2013, and we're a part of it. but the company is, as it is right now, is existing since 35 years. So we've been a member of Distripress since 1989, I guess. And this is the value chain we work with, because we are servicing the publishing industry. So you see all the things and bits we are doing along the value chain of a publisher. And I just pointed out what we are doing at the moment together with Readly. So you see there's a lot of services we offer. Of course we don't produce anything ourselves, but we are also a little bit of a consultancy for publishers who want to enter markets, especially of course because we're sitting in Switzerland. We can help publishers entering the market in Switzerland. Even Swiss publishers who start new publications would come to us and ask us how they could do single copy sales, subscription business, and so on.
Do you operate in other countries, or are you very
Yes, we
specific?
operate. As I said, this is just a subsidiary of Asendia. We have 23 offices around the world, and about 1,200 people working for Asendia at the moment.
Sounds like world domination.
Yeah. But we are just a team in Switzerland with 12 people, and the main activity, of course, for Asendia is cross-border mail.
Right, okay. That slide shows what you felt you could bring when you sort of started talking with brands. Do you want to just talk through that a bit more as to the assets that you have that you felt would be useful?
Well, I think it didn't start off that quick that we found out what we could do together. The first thing we just sat on the table and we asked each other, or I think it was you, asking us what can we do together?
Mm-hmm.
What can you help us for entering Switzerland, or what else can you offer? And that was a kind of hard question to me in the first place. It was not clearly, this is what we can do together. It was more like, okay, let's see, what kind of abilities do we have, and what are we using at the moment for publishers?
Right, okay.
And now this is the digital world, but on the other hand, it's not very much different from distributing content. So
Okay.
that was the first point we started off from, to say, okay, this is all about distribution content. It's not physical content, but it's about distributing content.
Okay. So can you tell us, both of you, a bit more about the process? You said it was very much sort of sitting opposite each other at the speed dating table in Distripress as to what happened next. That you went away and then started to think about what your own priorities were, what your own assets were that you could bring together.
Well, the good thing was that the sales guy was on the table, and he has a lot of crazy ideas, like always salespeople have. And he came up to me and said, wouldn't that be a possibility to offer services from us around the sales organization? Because we have a very big sales organization in Switzerland. They could help them to grow with our sales organization in the part of the B2B. And I said,
And the sales organisation being what? Publisher contact?
no, the sales organization from Swiss Post in
Right.
Switzerland is one of the biggest sales organizations. We have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
So what we really do is we just manage partner and sales organization. So sales channel management and partner management. So at this stage we thought, okay, for Readly might be a good idea to use our sales channels,
Right.
to make use of it.
Okay. Okay. Now there's a slide here that sums up perhaps sort of like most strategies, you invented it after you'd go backwards, or once you realised where you'd got to. But it seems that yes, that there were some very clear assets on both sides. How long did it take to get to that point?
I think from our perspective, when we met Carsten and Carsten's company, that was our first visit to Distripress. So that was the first time Johannes basically sent Johannes out, go and find decent partners, good companies that we can speak to in terms of launching in new territories. So we had the initial meeting, and then it was a case of, for me, this is super important, is to find the right people to represent Readly. So, you can find companies everywhere and anywhere. You can find suppliers, they're tens of a dozen, but the bottom line is that we wanted somebody that would represent Readly, because I genuinely believe that nobody can sell Readly better than a Readly person. So for me, it was super important that we found the right people. So when Johannes came back and said, I found Asendia, it was important that I met with Carsten, because we had to fit, we had to connect. That was really important for me, and it was very important for Readly. So, we knew what we wanted to do. We knew that we needed a quick entry into a marketplace that we had no idea as to, from an operational perspective, how it worked. We had an understanding of the language, but we didn't know what we needed to do in terms of, financial infrastructure, etc., etc. So when Carsten and I met for the first time, it was very much it was a very open discussion about, how can we work together? What do you need from me? What do I need from you? But it was something that kind of, it grew over time. It wasn't sort of instant, even though we say it was like, love at first sight. In all honesty, it wasn't. It was a series of meetings, a series of discussions that we had to have, because, Carsten's representing Readly. When their company is going out and talking to publishers, they are representing us, and for us it's important that we find the right fit.
So as publishers, was that the first point? Because on that slide you've got users as well, and, and the consumer.
Yeah.
It's a B2C and a B2B
Yeah.
side.
Okay. So what was it, the publisher end that was the first link, the most obvious one?
Well, that's the most obvious one, because one of our Asendia goals is that we consult publishers, that we work with publishers, and that then we really, since we are really giving them the best, what we think is the best partners or solutions, we said that really would be a good solution to offer to our publishers.
Right.
We wouldn't offer anything which we are not, I would say, good with.
So it works both ways, the
Yeah.
trust in terms of you representing Readly,
Exactly.
but also
Asendia
the
opened
product.
doors for us,
Yeah.
doors that we couldn't open, basically. So when you go into a new territory, even though I come from a publishing background, and it's quite easy to speak to publishers, that sometimes you just need somebody to assist you and to help you, and that's exactly what Asendia did for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are publishers that different from country to country, right?
That's a very tricky question. That wasn't on the list. I think fundamentally no. There are cultural differences.
Right. Okay.
But at the end of the day, everybody is providing content. They're pulling together content with a core purpose in mind. You've got to get that content out.
I mean, superficially, what they do looks
the
identical
same,
from country
absolutely.
to country.
But from a cultural perspective, there are differences, and you have to be sensitive to those differences.
Yes.
I think in the UK we have a very direct approach. This is what we do. Take it or leave it type thing. And then in Germany there's a little bit more formality involved. In Sweden, you get a mix of both. So you have to be aware of those.
Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's saying about the Brits. He said that the problem about the Brits, the Brits never come out and say no. That they say, well, that's an interesting idea, and then they go away. And but
I'd say the same about the Swedes.
About the Swedes, right? But that, I mean, just in terms of do you call someone by their first name? My impression is that France and Germany is quite formal in terms of communication.
Well, we had that. We had that issue, didn't we? I mean, that's the one thing I will never forget, having met Carsten for the first time, because I was sat with Johannes in a restaurant in Germany, in Munich, wasn't it? Yeah. And I could sense Johannes's apprehension, because Johannes was addressing Carsten as Mr. Vossner. And I was like,
really? I've never heard that
yeah,
before.
and I was just like, are you for real? Do I have to call this guy Mr. Vossmeyer? Like when I speak to him after Mr. Vossmeyer this, Mr. Vossmeyer. And he was like, but Ranch, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. And so the first thing, as soon as I saw Carsten, we shook hands and we did the old, thing. And I said, how do I address you? Are you okay if I call you Carsten? And he went, yeah, of course, it's okay. So it was Carsten after that. I would have found it really awkward to say, Mr. Vossmeyer, can we work with you on this, and can we do? Because I think, for me, that's that kind of it's a formality that for me it's unnecessary, and we had to get rid of those hurdles
Yes.
before we started
Well,
working together.
between the pair of
Between
you,
us, yeah, absolutely,
anyway.
absolutely. And not that I would respect that formality if I was
Yes.
going in another country and I had to address somebody like that. Absolutely, but you have to get that out of the way. If you really want to get
Yes.
down and dirty and do business together, then you need to get the formality out of the way.
Yes.
That was the first question you asked me.
Yeah, I did. I did. What do I call you?
But then well, it's nice. Now you know what to call each other.
Yeah.
But actually going into a publisher's office, is there that sort of process of finding your way? Because my impression is that everybody in Germany is a doctor. You have to. Looks like it. And there's that formality of going through until when? When do you know when to?
Well, I wasn't. Carsten and Johannes did a lot of the work. Your teams did a lot of the work with the Swiss publishers. If we're talking specifically about Germany, I think when you first go and meet them, yes, there is an element of formality, but once you've done your sales pitch and you've spoken to them and you've kind of broken down the barriers, then the doctors and the titles totally go out of the window. And it's you're human, you're all humans at the end of the day, and I think that's what's important. And people get it. Put your titles to one side, and people just understand that that's how we work.
Right. But also from a more technical point of view, so what you call people and how familiar you are, but is there also in a company structure more formality in working through the organisation? Because I think one of the problems, one of the challenges of Readly is who do you talk to?
Yeah.
With something that's digital, where does it sit? Is it subscription department? Is it digital? Is it editorial, commercial? But is there a long and sort of winding process into a publishing company?
In general, yes, but when you choose a partner like Asendia, then no, because they make it easy for you, because they have that connection, they know who to speak to. Like I said earlier, they open doors for you, and that's what we wanted, because for us it was quick route to market, quick access to a new territory that we'd never ventured into. And that's exactly what we wanted at Asendia, and that's what they delivered on. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us. You look at Italy, how we've worked in Italy and how we've worked in the Netherlands. We didn't have an Asendia there. We had a one-man band, a single consultant that did that for us. We had to do a lot of the work ourselves.
Right.
Working with the benefits, I guess, of working with somebody like Asendia is they make it
ease
easy.
and
Absolutely.
speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, clearly you get on very well individually, but I'd have thought that two organisations, it is the culture of Asendia and the culture of Readly, aren't they miles apart?
Oh, we're a little bit the translator, I would say. Like I said, our company exists since 35 years, and we have been in the organization of Swiss Post, we have been in the organization of Asendia. These are postal companies, they are big. They're behaving like big companies.
Right.
But we as a subsidiary with 12 people, we are not behaving like a big company.
Right, okay.
And we are free to do that.
Right.
So
you've had your own internal
Asendia is
cultural
benefiting
change.
from the entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not putting you in a jacket.
Right. Okay. Well, just to develop, so actually digging into Asendia, because I know with Distripress and Distripress members that a lot of speeding up the change and diversification means a major cultural change for the organisation itself. From Asendia's point of view, did you need that sort of separate arm's length subsidiary with a different culture from the main organisation in order to do this diversification?
I would say for our subsidiary it was necessary to focus on the abilities we have, because the challenges we are facing is the same as the publishing industry. So at the end of the day, you have to make a strategy and to look at your company and to say what are really the abilities of what we are doing.
Right.
And our abilities are managing partners, managing sales channels, and managing maybe big organizations like Asendia.
Right. Okay.
And like everybody tries to digitalize and to be more agile. That's what everybody is trying, maybe. I don't know. There are still a lot of companies with hierarchy.
Yeah.
Asendia is trying to be more agile. We do shared services all over the globe. So the spirit is already there. We are one of the most innovative little companies within Asendia.
Right, okay. Yeah.
We are also being the rabbit who tries things.
Right.
So that's in our gene. So maybe that's why it worked so well with Readly, because we wanted to be also in the digital publishing part, but we didn't know how to.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So at the moment they came up, I said this is just the perfect match, and it's a very good product, and it's working product. It's ready to go, ready for market, and it's fitting into the market. It wasn't there before,
That's right.
and so there was something new for us to offer.
Right, okay.
And so that was in the, also for our sales channel, it was a new thing to do. And as you know, salespeople love new products.
Yes, yes. And just on a point of detail, once you were in there, Ran, so Asendia opening up the doors, did publishers get it straight away? Was it a quick yes, no?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. As I said, they made it easy. I think the language barrier as well, you know, speaking in the same language, the tone, selling the service in makes it so much easier.
Right,
So
okay.
much easier.
Yeah.
And again, you know, we've found when we've launched in other territories, it's always, we found our Italian consultant from Distripress as well, right?
Right.
So it's, having a local person there really does help us.
Okay.
Really does help.
And it's mainly from a speed point of view.
Absolutely, speed, make it easy, translation. There's lots of, you know, we just have to look at our own organisation. We try and make it a border-free workforce. I mean, we've got offices in Berlin, in the UK, and in Stockholm. And when you're working in different territories, as I said about cultural differences and language as well, can create a problem. And if we have issues like that within our own organisation that we've overcome, we can imagine what it's like working with a publisher and
Yes.
trying to sell something into them.
Yeah.
So we learned that very early on when we set up. So it's important to have somebody to just sometimes translate the most simplistic things. You know, I would say a distribution agreement. In Germany, they might say a contract. You know, and the simple things that just need
Yes.
to be translated by a local person, just to get things going.
Right, okay. The publisher end is the obvious one, I suppose. What about the consumer? Did I would have thought that was an area that perhaps came out of your discussions that Asendia could help in terms of the consumer marketing that might not have been there at the beginning.
And there you must ask Ranch, because there we learned a lot from Ranch and the organization of Readly. That's for them, that is all about partnerships with B2B.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I think
So
we.
it's better you explain.
Very smooth,
It was,
Carl.
it was. Let's just pass the buck over to her. The bottom line is we know our customer. We know what our customers like. We are sitting on a huge gold mine of data. So we know exactly how our consumers behave on the platform. And one of the things that we do know is that in order to generate subscriptions very quickly, a B2B partnership or a B2C partnership works for us. So it could be with a large telco like a Vodafone or an O2 type scenario. And then again, it was using Asendia to open doors for us within the Swiss market to B2B partners.
Oh, right, so they did that as well.
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah. So that kind of transformed over time when we were
Yeah.
speaking to them. But our first point was we need to get out to the publishers. We need to get Swiss content, mix that up with some German content, get it out onto the platform and entice consumers, and then we work on a direct-to-consumer partnership.
Okay. So did have any partnership contracts or partnership developments actually emerged from?
Yes,
okay.
yeah. We did two actually. We had one with the staff from Swiss Post, I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Swiss
So with them, we did a special offer. Obviously, it's a very large
Oh, right, so
organisation.
internal.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
okay.
So let everybody get a flavour for what Readly is all about
Yes.
at a special offer, and then we followed up with another campaign.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And then the consumer themselves, are they Swiss? I mean, I have a Swiss sister-in-law, so I know slightly
What
odd
was going to say
nation.
bank account?
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me.
Steady on.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, well, before Brexit, I've got to get my money out, haven't I?
Sorry.
But is the Swiss consumer any different to in terms of the offers that they respond to, what you go in with up front, or is it very much trial and error in each territory?
It's really trial and error. I mean, a year before we met Carsten, I met a lot of Swiss women at an event, and I was showing them the German version of Readly, and they were like, "Why aren't you in Switzerland? Oh my God, you need to get Marie Claire on there, you need to get Vogue on there, blah blah blah." So there was definitely an interest for magazines, because magazines are expensive in Switzerland, right? And there is no digital offering in the same form as Readly in Switzerland. So I think consumer is the consumer. They want to read content, they want to snack on content, they want to read long form curated content, and for us we can do behavioural analysis across each territory. So I can't really give you I can't say Swiss consumers behave in a different way to German consumers. What we do know is that for them to get this all-you-can-consume subscription for magazines is great, because then they're not having to cough up loads of money for very expensive subscriptions, and they get everything in one place.
And what we know is that Swiss people read more different titles than any other country in Europe.
Oh, right.
From a print perspective, is that
Yes.
yeah.
So the behaviour we know about, and then
Right.
that's the way we speak in the first place.
Right.
How's the Swiss market? What are the readers like? What do they like? What they don't like? They don't like 9.99.
Okay.
Yeah.
They like 10.
That's
Or
very
9.
Swiss.
Yeah,
Yes.
not 9.99. The Germans like 9.99.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's the difference.
yeah,
When you do the pricing, be careful with it.
yeah.
Oh.
It's really
Because the
important.
Swiss say,
Yeah.
What the
You
hell?
can't fool
What
the
hell?
Swiss.
It's 10. It's 10. It's not
How
9.
interesting. Really?
Yes.
But the Brits don't like 9.99, do they? We had to drop our price in the UK because we
Yes.
had to find that sweet spot, because they need to feel they're getting value for money.
Yes.
But then that's all in the mind, Swiss people are used to expensive things, whereas in the UK everybody's looking for a
But-
bargain.
But
But
round
if you
numbers.
offer something cheap in
Yes.
Switzerland, nobody's going to buy it.
Devalues.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're filthy rich. That's why.
No. No, because there's no value. There's no value in it.
Right. Yeah.
If they make a cheap offer, it looks like.
How
I don't know.
interesting. Yes. Yes. Then going back to the actual range of magazines, was it very different? It sounds as though you had a mix of domestic German, domestic Swiss,
Yeah.
international English language titles. Was the mix different in Switzerland to other
Well,
countries?
when we've launched in territories, so when we've launched in the UK, obviously there was English content, British content on the platform. And over here, we have the opportunity to vary it a little bit, because multilingual country, you can put German magazines in there, you can put Swiss magazines in there, French magazine and English magazines in there. So in the actual on the actual platform for the Swiss version. So and we learned from that. We realised that in some territories you can have a mixture of content. In others, you have to stick to the plan.
Right.
In Germany it's German. In the UK it's UK, and in Sweden as well. It's just Swedish magazines. This was one of the first territories where we could blend titles from different territories, because it's multilingual. People are educated, they're affluent, they want to read. So it gave us the opportunity to push more content out.
Right. Okay.
And the hard part for them is 3 languages.
Yes. Yeah.
There's Italian, there's the German, and there's French.
Right.
And we have Italian now.
And Italy helped a lot.
It did, yeah.
Right. So, how do you structure this kind of relationship? Is there a contract between you?
There's a B2B side, like we said. That's a little bit bigger contract, maybe 3 pages. And there's
3 pages. Most on Swiss like.
yes, Swiss is very easy. You have a OR, as you say it. If a contract doesn't fit to anything, you take out the OR, and that's it.
Right.
Very easy.
Yes.
That's why Swiss contracts are very 3 pages.
Yeah, straightforward.
And it doesn't really,
Right.
it's not so complicated.
But apart from contracts, I mean, also measurable results and what you're going to do next, and what success looks like, or did you sort of feel your way and make that up as you went along?
We have 2 sides. We have the B2C and the B2B, or the content, acquiring content.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And of course, each acquired content gives you a certain amount. Or you have the B2B. If you are successful, it gives you a certain amount. If you're not successful, we still love each other.
Right. Really. But Brands doesn't come in and slam her fist on the table and say,
I haven't yet.
Carsten, you failed miserably.
They have a developing manager, and I call with them every week.
Right.
So we're very close. They're measuring all the time.
Right.
What are you doing? Then we work on a platform, on a very modern platform where everybody can write into and see what's happening
Yes.
in real time.
So is this a market entry strategy? Is this a one-night stand or an ongoing loving marriage between you?
Well,
You can answer that one.
I don't like one-night stands.
Me neither. We're faithful to each other.
It's not very consistent.
Right.
I think for us it's definitely an ongoing relationship. It's worked. If it hadn't have worked, really we're very good at closing doors and just moving away, because it's all about failing fast, learning from your experiences and moving on to the next thing. We don't have time to work with suppliers where we're having to constantly correct them or making things right. We genuinely don't have time to do that. So for me, this is an ongoing thing. I mean, Carsten's already said they're available in, I think it's 23 odd countries worldwide. It is an ongoing relationship for us,
Right.
definitely.
Just out of interest, outside Europe, where is Asendia?
Oh, we just opened up New Zealand and Australia.
Right.
We have Hong Kong. We have Europe. It's quite big. Nordics. 3 subsidiary in the Nordics. UK, USA. I think 3 places in the US.
So yeah, so enough to keep you going, Brad.
Singapore. So that's Singapore. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
No, it's quite cultural as well.
Right, right.
So we also used to that, and maybe that's also making it a lot easier to talk to each other.
Yes. I mean, looking back, are there things that you with hindsight that you would have done differently, or it sounds as though things just happened so quickly?
Well, we tried to involve Swiss Post at one stage, also with financially,
Right.
but that didn't. Too much movement.
When you say
Too much movement.
to involve them financially, what do you actually mean by that?
I don't know. They talked together. I wasn't there.
Oh, I see.
Now he's throwing this question back at
Is
me.
it?
No, really. I mean, it didn't happen, so there's nothing to talk about.
Oh, right.
But
Okay.
I think that's trial and error. I think with any relationship
We
like
tried,
this,
but
you
it
try
didn't,
it.
yeah.
You try it, and it doesn't always work. And would we do something differently? In all honesty, no. I don't think we would. It's all about the relationship, isn't it? Really, you try stuff, it works. If it doesn't work, you move on. You know, that's just how it is. And I think for us, the main point is that we have a good relationship, and then when you filter into the organisations, the people that are speaking to each other on a day-to-day basis have really strong relationships. And I think, you know, top down or bottom up, whichever way you want to look at it, it's tight, and that's what makes this type of relationship work.
Okay.
So So yeah, it's good. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Okay, so is this your new model, the new Readly model?
It's not the model.
Mm.
It's not the model. We have many different models because we just can't do, you know, like a one size fits all. But it works for us in Switzerland. It could work for us in other territories. But we might find if we're launching, say, in South America, it's a completely different model. So it's horses for courses, as they say. We have to look at the market. We research the market and then we find the best possible solution. And the first time we find it, you know, the first solution might not be the right solution, but at least we know we've got people who we can talk to now and get their advice.
Right.
Now I have a question. In terms of Distripress, how did Readly get in here?
Yeah, why did you let them in?
I was introduced to Ange, and I was told by someone who should remain nameless that there was definitely there was a meeting of minds going to happen, and I think it did. And 2 years ago, we said, well, come along and see what it's all about. And I think you had the privilege of joining us in Estoril in 2017, and as they say, the rest is history. I think in some ways, to your point of, you know, you come together for a meeting and you're not really sure what you're going to get out of it. I suspect there was a hint of that for both of us. I was thinking, are really going to be interested in joining our community? You were thinking, why should I join the family? And we had open minds, and here we are. So, is that fair, Jim?
It is, yes. And then Amazon next, perhaps. Are they going to become members of Distripress?
Could you say, may I ask Manch a question? Could you say Distripress added value?
Yeah, definitely. In all honesty, when I first met Tracy, obviously we hit it off immediately, but I did think, why do I want to put my money into an organisation that is traditionally a print-orientated, a print-based organisation? And when we'd had discussions about it, I went back and I remember speaking to my CEO, and I just said, it's a good idea, we'll be the first ones in, you know, and let's just see what happens. And this is like our third Distripress, our third one. So yeah, we're at the sort of point of no return. We will definitely be coming back, you know. So
That's the right.
That's
Now, questions, guys. I'm sure you're sitting there. Well, I'm sure there must be some specifics that you want to probe into, or not. Yes.
You were mentioning the pricing of such a app. Do you have also different ways of pricing it within 50 territories, like only yearly price versus monthly? Sometimes we will see weekly prices now. Do you have a wide variety of pricing?
No, we stick with it. It's a monthly subscription. You can take up a 6-month sub or an annual sub, but predominantly it's monthly. And it's really, you know, if you look at what we call entertainment junkies out there, people that subscribe to Spotify or to Netflix, you know, people are used to that mindset of paying a monthly sub, and that's exactly the route that we're going down. We have to be careful on a number of levels. First and foremost, you know, the $9.99, the $7.99, we have to make sure that it's the right price range for the right market. Secondly, we have to be careful from a publisher perspective, because it's not our content, it's our publisher, it's our clients' content that we're putting on the platform. And we don't want to undermine or devalue their content, because it's important. Without them, we wouldn't have a platform. So we have to get the price point right. And for instance, like when we launched in the UK, the price point of $9.99 was far too high. And when we decided to do we conducted quite a few tests. But when we decided to reduce it, because we wanted to align it with the US price point, which was $9.99 at that point, we checked with our key clients as to, you know, is that going to be okay? Because the bottom line is, it's not our content to give away. We're bringing new eyeballs onto their content, but we don't want to devalue their you know, really good journalism and the time and the energy that they put in to produce these lovely magazines.
The only thing about pricing in Switzerland is what we heard yesterday. It was, I think somebody mentioned it, that the pricing in Switzerland was questioned by the government of Switzerland
Oh,
because the German publications are way too expensive in Switzerland. So they had a quarrel and I think even some initiative within Switzerland from the people. As you know, Switzerland, they vote a lot against the pricing of the German publications, which influenced also then the pricing with Sweden.
It's perceived value. I think that's what it is. It's all about perceived value, and I think that's how it works in Switzerland. The more expensive the item, the more valuable the item, I think. And obviously, if you're looking at the States or the UK or whatever, you know, you have to find that sweet spot.
And VAT, Ranch?
Well, that's a really tricky question, Jim.
Yes.
The VAT
Yes.
expert sat over there.
Right.
I try not to get involved. Brexit and VAT are questions you need to avoid.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh well, we'll forget about VAT.
That's where we help briefly as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We,
That's why we have it.
we do the fiscal part for them.
Right. Right.
So we do the bits and numbers with the government and the VAT.
Right. So you're the one going to prison if you
They even have a mailbox at our office.
That's all right. Oh, awesome.
They have a mailbox at our office.
Right. I see. Okay.
So they have a sort of a
So
home.
all the complaints come to you. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's the model for publisher? How are they paid? Is it based on what people download, or is it a fee for
Yeah,
being
it's-
part of the platform?
It's paid on dwell time. So the longer you read a particular title, the more money we will put into that publisher's coffers. Yeah. We pay more than Apple. Let's put it
I mean, what do you make of all the competition? Because there's Apple News and Amazon is circling like a shark and is doing lots of stuff.
I think it's great. I really, genuinely, hand on heart, think it's really good. Purely because it's about educating an audience, right? And really, you know, when we first launched in the UK, we had a couple of competitors in the UK that have now fizzled out because we trampled all over
Crushed them.
We crushed them. But it is all about an education. It's an education for the publishers. It's an education to the consumer. And if Apple are going out and doing the same thing, Amazon are going out and doing a similar thing. I mean, everybody's familiar with the Netflix model. They're all familiar with the Spotify model. I think it clears the path for us. It makes it a little bit more easier for us. And it gives the consumer a choice. You know, do they want to go down the Apple route, or Readly, or Amazon, or Amazon Prime, or whatever it is that they want to do? So it gives them a choice. So I think for us it's great. Our investors think it's absolutely marvellous. The texture Apple takeover. So it makes them. We believe we're in the right place at the right time. This is our time. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, what is the audit percentage of commission to the publishers?
How does the
Commission, the benefit to the publisher?
Well, like I said, it's based on dwell time. I can't actually disclose the numbers because they're
It's case
contractual. Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, we pay more than Apple. So I can give you an example in terms of if you were reading, say, 1 month, you were reading an Axel Springer title and you were reading a Haymarket title, for instance, the monies would be divided equally between those, yeah? If you went in and just read one magazine that particular month, then all the money would go to that particular publisher. So I can't actually state the exact amount, but it's based around dwell time.
So the individual brands, individual titles are
Yeah.
fighting
Yeah.
for the consumers'
Absolutely.
time. Yeah. Any other? Yes.
Hello. One of the things we see as a benefit with any form of digital sales is the international reach you get. Can you say something about that briefly?
In terms of
In terms of if I look at our business in the UK, we probably have about 15% of our print in export, but probably about 50% of our digital in export, so we get a much better penetration into overseas markets.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this forum here, it's great working with all the distributors and getting placement into the news agents around the world, but it's not a perfect supply chain.
No.
Whereas with digital, you're reaching a wider audience. People can
Exactly.
access it online.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. I think you've kind of answered your own question there, Steve, or answered it for me. So our route to market is global. Obviously, when we're doing marketing campaigns, we target specific titles within specific territories, but we also know, for instance, from our data, I'll use Cosmopolitan as an example, for instance, or Psychology's magazine, for instance. That's a really good example. We can tell from the data that 60% of our readership for Cosmopolitan is based in the UK, but the rest of it is either the US and Germany. So there's an equal divide between those two territories. So we know that there is a significant appetite out there for the UK edition of Cosmopolitan, and then we share that data with our publishers in an aggregated form. So we'll share that, which you guys know, we share it with you guys. And then from there you can pull together your own marketing strategy to market to those titles, maybe do an expat campaign. But when we look at marketing, we look at it from a global perspective as opposed to just looking at the regions that we're in. I mean, the data is phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Because you've got page by page.
Absolutely. We can tell you where people are going in and reading, where they drop out of the magazine, what the demographic is, what age they are, where they're reading. We have heat maps to show, that they're reading in the evening and what they read after they've read your title. So there's just so much data that we're sitting on, and then we use that to do our targeted marketing campaigns, and obviously to push that data back out to you guys so that you can see, one of your titles works really well in Germany, for instance. Maybe that's something that the marketing teams need to look at from a print perspective, because people are reading it digitally online. So we use our data to help the publishers.
Do subscribers have access to back issues?
Yes, they do. Can somebody ask Carsten a question? He's just sat here, taking it easy. Yes, they do. So we have the most current issue, and it's down to the publisher as to how far they want to go. So if you have, say, a cookery, like a cooking title, there's only so many ways you can make chocolate cake. So a publisher will decide, we're only going to put the last 6 issues of, say, Delicious magazine on the platform, but say something like, I don't know, a Top Gear magazine or digital camera magazine, etc. They will go back as far as day dot. It's up to the publisher to decide whether they want to keep them going or just have the last 6 months or the last 3 months. And that just to add to that, do they get read? Yes, they do, because we have a really fantastic search function within Readly. So if you were to put, I don't know, Donald Trump or Kim Kardashian in there, it will bring up every article related to those 2 individuals, and it could be in a back issue, and you could be reading an article in a magazine that was published 2 years ago, for instance.
So it's another question.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, I don't know.
They were with me last night.
Oh, well, that's why they're doing it, planted them, right? Sorry, I didn't hear
So
you.
I don't know if you can share this, but just in terms of retention rates, I was just interested to know if you've got any kind of top line insights around, drop-off rates after 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. Do you find there's a point at which that's when you've got someone, and does that vary by market?
What we have found is that within the first week of subscribing, if somebody reads more than 2 magazines on the platform, they're in. Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, I can't share lifetime value rates with you or churn rates and stuff like that with you, otherwise they'd shoot me. But the bottom line is that we know that as soon as we get a customer in and they read more than 2, they're hooked, and then that's it. And even if they, say, drop out of their trial period, we've noticed that within a period of 6 months, they will come back in again on another code, but they'll come back in and start.
Come back in on another trial.
Absolutely, they can do.
Do you have a problem with that? Repeat
With
trials?
serial trialists, yes, we do, but it depends on the type of campaigns that we do. There's not many publishing people in our organisation, and coming from a print background, we know that that's something that the print industry really suffers from. I used to be a serial trialist when I was testing our competitors' titles, so we've switched on to that, and now we know that we make sure that we do campaigns that are of real value, as opposed to here's a 50p trial, if you go and So we're on it. Yeah.
Any other questions? There was another question.
Yeah, so would be for Carson.
Oh, good.
Well done.
I presume Asendia is distributing magazine door to door, like any post service. Have you seen or analyzed a certain portion of cannibalization between Readly and digital and the door to door? Because you have access to this wonderful data.
No, I don't have access to the data she's talking about. But,
The publishers have access to the data.
Publisher.
Yeah.
But I, since we are very close to the publishers, we brought onto that platform. Of course, I talked to them, and they said it's true that it's almost no cannibalization, and they can prove it by data. And they are even open to say, okay, if you have the feeling that there is, then we open the books and you can match your data with our data. That's what they offer.
Yeah.
At least you told me.
No, we do. We do. We have done that. We have done that with publishers, definitely. Definitely. I think, just to add to what Carsten said, a Readly consumer is very different to a print consumer. A Readly consumer wants more bang for their buck. They're looking for lots of different content and not necessarily just one niche interest. So that's why it's the rates are low.
Just quickly follow up question: how many on average magazine they're reading?
On average, it depends on each territory. So in some territories, people are reading sort of between 5+, some are reading 8, and in others there's 20. It depends on which market you're in. Yeah.
Last question? Well, I think both Ranj and Carsten are going to be around for a little longer. I know you're hopping on a plane shortly, Ranj. But a marriage made in Distripress.
Just call me the
Matchmaker.
matchmaker.
Yeah.
You're a matchmaker.
Matchmaker, make me a match.
But thank you all for coming and
Thank you.
contributing. And thank you both, Ranj and Carsten.
Absolutely.
Thank
My
you very
thanks to
much.
Ranj and Carsten, who were actively encouraged to support us this morning. So I really do appreciate it. And of course to Jim for facilitating matters. And thanks to you guys. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yes,
Hope to see
thank
you
you.
around the Congress Centre.
Thank
Thank you.